Howdy y'all, I am Ice Cold, and today I will be providing solutions to all the problems I gave in my video a week and a half ago. There are definitely ways to fix the balance school. There have been times where I've thought it was impossible to nerf balance, really, because their library is just so extensive, but it can be done if the devs really look at everything that makes balance far and away the best school in PvP at max level right now. I was really happy to hear that they're finally doing something about, everybody's favorite Hydra, but Hydra is just one spell. They need to fix a lot more than just Hydra, and I will go over everything that balance has that I think could use a nerf. Scarab. Okay, this one is mostly a joke because Scarab isn't that bad, but one of the best ways for most schools to beat balance when we can't aura is by using, single blades. And Scarab here will swap them, quote unquote. In other words, just, straight up stealing them since balance doesn't have a blade, which then buffs up their triple hits. There's really quite a bit to the whole swap thing that a lot of balance spells have, and swaps are valued lower actually than steals or echoes because you can, in theory, give your opponent a better blade, for example, in the case of Scarab, but because of balance's nature and playstyle, they never use any of the things that their myriad of spells are supposed to risk when they swap, so they just, steal or shift everything while getting way more damage than the spell with the steel attached would. So I propose simply echoing the blades people have. It would let balances take a better hits, and people would be wary of blading around them. Balance naturally doesn't deal a ton of damage with most of their spells, so this could be a good way to help that bit out. Scorpion is the main inspiration for making this video. I proposed the exact same solution I gave for Scarab. Just echo the one shield rather than swapping one over, so we can avoid people abusing Hydra even after the proposed nerf, because this spell is the main thing that could completely nullify said nerf. If you're going to give a school a spell that can feed off shields, don't give the same school a spell that can forcibly put a shield on their opponent, because getting a shield off of yourself is infinitely harder than getting a shield off of your target. Scorpion becoming a quote-unquote baby Hydra would be fine in my book, because it wouldn't enable any more Hydra nonsense following the nerf. Gearhead Destroyer. I mentioned this in my video back on the 2nd. This spell is a huge problem because, like I said earlier, the swap function has less value than a push or a steal, so it gets to deal nearly 1,000 damage after all the multipliers are counted, while putting probably another 1,000 damage on the target in the form of their overtime, right? While also getting that 1,000 damage off of the caster. For 4 pips. Balance is supposed to be the jack of all trades school, but they end up being the master of all trades because of just how busted some of these spells really are. I imagine the spell was made with poison in mind to help balance in the fight against death, but what ended up happening here is ice versus balance became fundamentally impossible, and life versus balance became way more, boring and that type of deal. And there's a number of spells I'll talk about later that also make this matchup impossible to win for the ice, but what I'll say for this one is that it closes off the last avenue that we as ices have against balance, and using, quick frostbites in rapid succession. That's how we do it against other schools that we can't shield against, but we can't do it against balance because I'll get another 2,000 damage on us if we even try it. My solution is, like the others, echoing the overtime to make Gearhead into a pseudo overtime card for pressure. This would allow them to still counter shields and create pressure, as well as maybe heal a little bit, while also giving other schools some room to breathe, like ice, for example. This, I'd argue, is 3rd on the priority list for a nerf after Hydra and, Supernova, which I'll get into later. Hydra, of course, is actually slated to be reworked in the next update. I think it'll be losing 40 damage per head to fit more with Balance's DPP, as well as the echo happening after the hit as opposed to before, so that there's finally some counterplay to it. I think that when the spell gets nerfed, it'll be in a good spot. This one is, already solved, and I've been talking about what the devs are doing for a while, so, big ups to them on this one. It's not going to be fixed for another, month and a half, but the long-awaited Hydra fix is, in fact, coming, so it'll be, liberating to finally be free of this card. Manaburn is another one of those that's pretty wild. I was watching a match the other day where a friend of mine was going against the Death, who despite having low health, had my friend pinned with vampire weaknesses and all that. And, you know, I could talk at length about those too. Maybe I'll make a video talking about what needs to be nerfed with death, but all my friend had to do was empower, burn, empower, burn, empower, burn, and he won. No troll, that's how he did it. He almost blew a 3k health lead, and had he been any other school, it would have happened. Anyway, he won because he was able to keep the death from comboing by using this spell, which is extremely important in a meta like this. Manaburn's pip destruction mechanic is what everyone's got a problem with. It effectively allows the balance to threaten a fair amount of damage while unfairly keeping their opponent from being able to do the same amount of damage back to them. I've really always been against the idea of pip destruction, especially in this gambit-centered meta where every pip matters, so I think I would solve the issue with, you know, being able to completely stop your opponent from playing the game by removing the pip destruction mechanic in favor of 30 more damage per pip burned, restoring it to 80, which is what it was, you know, ages ago. Like, I think that would be fun. You would absolutely still want to keep your pips low against a balance, because this would do more than it does right now by a lot, but it would also allow you to extend a bit and go for a gambit if you've got one set up, which evens the playing field, or balancing it, if you will. Now, Supernova is a card that I thought should get banned for a while now. There is no good way, no solution to keep this card in the game and have a healthy meta. I've seen some people defending it, saying things like, oh, you know, lower the damage and all that, but I just don't think that's going to make things any better. It could do like a quarter of what it does, and I'd still call it broken. Scratch that, actually. It could do, like, it could not do damage at all, and it would still be busted. Aura Destruction is one of those things that would be interesting if it wasn't, you know, A, exclusive to balance, and B, allowed balance to be the only school that can aura in a match against any other school. This then leads to the issues people have with Brace. It's honestly such a good pierce sponge, but if you're against a balance, you can't use it to mitigate their damage while they can mitigate yours. And that creates an even bigger imbalance, and that's why I think, you know, Aura Destruction as a whole needs to just, you know, not exist. On top of Brace, another good way to set up buffs is by using the Azteca School auras to gain an extra 25% damage on your hits at the cost of taking some more incoming damage from your opposite school. But, you know, of course, with Supernova in the game, you can't even use those. And, you know, I will stand by what I said in my previous video and saying that there is no solution to this card, and that it should be expressly banned in every PvP league. No damage nerf is going to make things any better. People use Brace, for example, to gain some extra resistance, which is fine, but if you have a card exclusive to one school that allows players of that one school to use Brace while removing anyone else's Brace, then that's an issue, and is grounds for the card's removal from PvP. I say what I said. If you can, like, the same applies to buffs like these auras. If you can take away a buff like this and do mass, that's not healthy for the meta. Now, I guess since they're both balance spells, they'll fit into this video, but the Tri-Shields should cost at least 1 pip to use. That's really about it. I mean, people set up shield gambits way too easily with these. I wanted to also briefly talk about things like chromatic weaknesses not applying to balances, because they just get converted into universal ones at a lower value. This Banshee, like if somebody were to Banshee my blades, for example, instead of a 25% chromatic, it would be a 20% universal. And I always thought that this was odd. Not only can a balance just, you know, empower off of vampire weakness, for example, but they have a far better time just hitting straight through it than any other school would. I guess except for Myth, because Stone Colossus is a thing, but anyway. I guess the trade-off is that they get slightly less potent versions of positive chromatic effects. I don't know. Either way, I think we need to introduce balance-specific blades and weaknesses at long last. We've seen that, you know, shields exist as far back as 2018, so I think this would be a massive help for other schools using chromatic effects on balances. It would also make things better for balances, because they would then be on even ground with everyone with stuff like, you know, Kraken blades. Eye for an eye, I suppose. Eye for an eye, I suppose. Sorry. One last quick thing. Balance should get a 4 pip hit and bubble while Gaze of Fate gets retuned. if all of these nerfs, rightfully happen, balance should at least get this, since bubble is probably the only thing that they struggle with at the moment, because, they can counter literally every move in the game. Like, if they could do that, I wouldn't say it's justified for them to have, but if they are put in check or rebalanced, y'all are never forgiving me for these, but if they were put in check, I think it would be a good idea to add a forfeit pit and bubble for balance. Now, I am fully confident in saying that balance will still be a good school, even if all this happens. Their stats are still some of the best in the game, and they've still got a bunch of spells that can help them win. And I hope the devs will go at least, a little further than where they're going with Hydra, but only time will tell, I suppose. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. I have been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.